Hey y'all, welcome to the Southern Appalachian Herbal Podcast. I'm Judson Carroll and I'm an herbalist. I'm also a wild crafter, a gardener, and herb grower. I'm coming to you from high atop the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, just a stone's throw from the Tennessee line, overlooking the Pisgah National Forest. Absolutely surrounded by the bounty of God's green earth. I spent most of my life wandering these mountains and learning about plants from the old-timers and all sorts of characters. On this show, we'll talk about herbs and how to use them, how to find them, how to grow them, how to make preparations. We'll talk about a lot of things. We can also talk about permaculture, homesteading, foraging, and living off the land. Most anything, really. You can email me at southernappalachianherbs@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. You can also contact me through the Grow Network, where I'm a regular contributor and a moderator for the forums. And my blog is, of course, southernappalachianherbs@blogspot.com. All right, y'all. I'm going to sit my guitar down and let's talk about herbs.
Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Hope you're enjoying this beautiful spring weather and you've been able to get out and harvest some wild herbs and wild edibles. If you haven't, what's stopping you? Go ahead and get out there. Life is short. We don't need to waste a second of it. We'll get into some very interesting herbs today from my book, Medicinal Weeds and Grasses of the American South. I think I'll actually cover about 3 of them. So we'll start with just one wild edible that I've covered before in a previous podcast under its medicinal uses. So I want to go ahead and give you just a really good recipe that's totally different. I've been harvesting ramps. The ramps are just about done now. So I get ramps while I can. Ramps wait for no man. They come in a little before Easter and they're gone right after Easter. They're wild leeks. They're absolutely delicious. And I did a show on that about 2 weeks ago. So I've told you all about ramps, but I keep finding new things to put them in. I put ramps in my spaghetti sauce. I put ramps in the hamburger meat when I made tacos. I put ramps in just about everything. But one meal that I probably have mentioned before, but it totally bears repeating. It's so easy. It's so cheap. And it's good any time of year, but we had a little cold snap this last week. Started going back down below freezing at night, and I wanted something rich and hearty. And I got a ham, baked ham. They had them on sale at one of the grocery stores for Easter, and seemed to be a good quality and a great price. So I've been eating a little ham here and there, and it hit me. Ham and ramps go so well together. And I had a nice fresh head of cabbage. And I absolutely just love Polish and Ukrainian food. All this food from Central Europe is really very much to my liking. And I think I have mentioned this dish before. It's called Haluski or Halushka, depending on where you're from. I know it more as Haluski. And it is so cheap, so easy, absolute peasant food, absolutely filling, comforting. If you haven't made this before, you're going to want to make this. I did a great interview with a Catholic podcast this past week called Sensus Fidelium. And interestingly, the host said that he originally found my work when I commented on a Twitter post by Dr. Taylor Marshall. He's a Catholic commentator. And we were talking about gardening, and we were talking about home cooking and how inexpensively one can actually live if you grow your own food and you do your own cooking, and you get out in the woods and do some foraging and some fishing, etc. And I said, I may have even said a meal like Haluski can feed a whole family for a couple of dollars, and you can eat off of it for a couple of days. And if you think along the lines of meals like that, you can feed a family for $10-20 a week. It can be done. How do I know it can be done? Well, I learned to live on $5 a week back on after the financial collapse of 2008. So, yeah, I know it can be done. And actually, after my parents' divorce, that's how my mother raised me. I think her food budget was something like $5 a week for the two of us. I'm not kidding. Um, she's a creative cook. She taught me a lot. Of course, back then you could get a bag of lentils for 29 cents at the local grocery store. Lentils, onion, can of chicken broth, or if she made chicken broth, which she usually did. Um, yeah, that would have been supper for 3, 4 days there, and didn't cost more than all total $1. So it can, even now, when you're going to spend about $1 to $1.50 for a bag of lentils. Still, just think how many meals it's going to make. And if you hold back some of those lentils and plant them, they're one of the easiest legumes to grow. Um, you buy one, bag of lentils, even if it's 250, right? You're going to get, I don't know, 5, 6 meals out of it, and have enough lentils to plant so that you never have to buy lentils again your entire life. Like I said, if you got lentils and onions, you are set. I like to throw definitely some chicken stock in there. Um, some chopped tomato, that's really good. Splash of wine, a few herbs, and that's remarkably good. A carrot chopped up, cannot beat it. Carrot and onion, celery. You can do the classical French way with a little chicken stock and wine. Or you can make it just as simple as you want to your own taste. Or you can sprout those lentils and eat them as sprouts. They're actually quite good. But this dish called Haluski is so simple. Traditionally, at least the way I've always been served it when Polish folks and such have cooked it, you take some bacon and render it down a pan, add some butter, toss in chopped onions and cabbage, cook it through, cook some egg noodles, take your egg noodles, serve the onion cabbage mixture on top, big scoop of sour cream, crumble the bacon over it, and you will be blown away at how delicious it is. I am not kidding. Well, I had ham, right? I had some bacon fat. So all same thing. And I'd use ramps instead of onion, and wild ramps. Small head of cabbage, just cooked down in bacon fat and butter. Chopped up the ham in there, browned it up a little bit, as I was doing the onions and such. Served over egg noodles with sour cream, and I just ate another serving of it. I cannot get enough of this stuff. It is so satisfying. And, that's a store-bought ham. I could have easily used another meat. I've got it on sale for 99 cents a pound. It's pretty hard to beat, right? So even paying store prices, that's a meal that's like, I don't even know, 20 cents a serving at most? At most. So, yeah, anyway, when you get into foraging and you get into gardening, especially if you can do a little hunting and fishing, or if you keep a little backyard small livestock, it doesn't have to be a cow. You can keep some backyard chickens or guinea fowls, always a favorite of mine, rabbits, meat rabbits. There's really no reason why your food budget has to be a major expense, really. If you're eating out all the time, yeah, it's gonna hurt you. If you're shopping the middle aisles at the grocery store, when I go to the grocery store, except for the baking aisle where I'll pick up flour and oil and such, I basically shop at the perimeter. I go in, I hit the produce, the meats and dairy, and I'm out of there. If you're shopping the middle aisles, you're getting killed. That's inflation. It's Bidenomics. Price of everything's gone up double or 3 times since he was elected, and the serving size has gone down, usually by about a third. We're getting crushed. So I would encourage you, if you haven't done so already, definitely check out my book, The Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking. And there's some great gardening books out there. I was recommended that on that podcast, John Seymour's book. I think is that How to Grow More Vegetables, or no, that's Self-Sufficient Gardening. And John Jevons' book, How to Grow More Vegetables. They're old books. They're talking about French biointensive gardening. You combine French biointensive gardening with permaculture principles, and you can grow all the food you need for a whole family on an acre, believe it or not. You actually really can do it, and there are people doing it. You may have to, use some high tunnels or a hoop house or even a greenhouse, but it can be done. It's harder in a colder climate. It's integrating both plants and animals. So the animals eat the plants you grow for their food, and you use their manure as fertilizer, and you compost everything. You're doing double dug beds, you're doing intensive planting, you're using vertical space as well, trellising and containers and whatever you got to do. Growing things up a sunny wall in the house, even using the roof space, capturing all fertility and water that falls on that property one way or another. And it can be done. If you've got an acre, you can absolutely feed a family on it. It's not using conventional gardening techniques, not using chemical fertilizers and the kind of stuff you would learn in a Master Gardener course, which I've taken a Master Gardener course. There are much better ways to do things. So, like I said, look into permaculture, look into French biointensive. That's not biodynamic. Two completely different things, entirely different things. French biointensive. I got word the other day that the Grow Network is shutting down its forums. So, my show has opened every week for 3 years, saying I'm also a moderator at the Grow Network forums. Yeah, we're going to have a new intro this week. I'm going to have to redo it and take that part off. And it's such a heavy heart when I think about this. 8 years I've been a moderator on the Grow Network forums, made so many good friends. It was the Herbalist at Grow Network Forum, like Tori, I've interviewed her on the show, that encouraged me, gave me the confidence to write and teach about herbalism. Having grown up in herbal medicine in the mountains, I thought everybody knew this stuff. Yeah, I was really surprised. Because that's so much a part of my background. Marjorie Wildcraft hired me to write articles during the COVID crisis when I needed the money. They gave me credentials in a way. They gave me, I could say, well, I work with the Grow Network, and everybody in like permaculture and natural gardening and everything. Oh, okay, I know what that is. Okay, you're credible, right? They encouraged me to write the books. It was actually someone on there helped me, gave me advice on how to use Amazon to self-publish paperbacks. Jolanta Wittib, the herbalist I wrote the Herbs and Weeds of Father Johann Kunzel. We met on the Grow Network forum. Been so many funny stories I could share with you. So many interesting things. I'm really sad to see the forums go. But as far as I know, the Grow Network will stay active. You'll still be able to buy Marjorie's book. You'll be able to buy the classes, and she has some really good classes on bio-intensive gardening, on permaculture, on raising backyard chickens, ducks, meat rabbits, you name it. And so that should continue to be a good resource. And like I said, I'm going to miss those forums like crazy, but it's been a good 8-year run. All right, so let's get into the foraged plant for the week, and that is burdock. Now, I've done a whole show on burdock and its medicinal properties. Such a great wild edible. Considered a weed. People hate it. The burrs, of course, get stuck in your hair, stuck in your clothes. If you got horses or dogs, growing up on a farm, I was continually cutting burrs out of fur and manes and tails and all that. They're a real nuisance. Actually, burrs are what, that's the seed pod of the burdock and the cocklebur, which is a very different plant, similar seed pod. That's actually what inspired Velcro. They actually have little hooks on them. It can grow to be a fairly big plant. There's a giant burdock, and then there's smaller ones. You'll probably see all of them. They're not native to America. They're actually native to Asia, but they were pretty popular in Europe medicinally. Sometimes as food. You see them used much more as food in Asia, where the root is farmed. Sometimes the leaves, but usually the root. It's known as gobo. Now, if you've ever tried to pull up a burdock plant or dig up a burdock plant, you know that root can go down 3 feet into the soil. It is like ridiculous. So what they do in Asia where they grow burdock for food is they grow it in raised beds with side panels they can take off. So when it's time to harvest the gobo, they just pull a panel off, reach in there and pull out the root. It's a super easy way to do it. Really great medicinal plant. It's one of those that's just really good for the liver, and you can use the leaves for poultices. You can use the leaves as they're big. You can actually use them as a bandage if you needed to in the woods. But as far as edibility, The root is like the most sought after, and you just peel the root, harvest it, and well, I usually harvest it about any time of year. Actually, well, spring through fall. I mean, when the plant dies back, I don't know where it is, but really difficult. You're probably going to want to go to like a bank beside a creek or something where you can dig them out sideways. But of course, if you have them in your yard, get to them any way you can. They're a bit too rough to eat, tough to eat raw, and that goes for both the root and the leaves. And the stem can actually be peeled and eaten. Makes a great pot or herb. Cook it, steam saute method, or boil the roots, saute. I mean, whatever you like. Put them in with a roast. I often do this. Well, and I've mentioned this before. It's one of my favorite ways to use burdock greens. And it's just, there's burdock in the woods and there's trout in the stream. So I just go catch a trout or any other fish, grab a few burdock leaves, some wild onions or ramps, any kind of allium, a little sorrel or dock because it's got a lemony flavor, or I'll bring a lemon with me and salt and pepper to taste. Just clean the fish, gut it, stuff it with the onions and a little bit of something citrusy, salt and pepper. Wrap it in a couple layers of burdock, and then just cook it right on the coals of the campfire. The outer leaves will burn away. The inner leaves will be perfectly steamed and tender, delicious, and the fish is perfect. It's like cooking with banana leaves, how they do in the South America and such. It's the perfect way to make the absolute any kind of fish. I would do that. I mean, yeah, I'd even do catfish is a little fatty for steaming. I know. Okay, so maybe not catfish, but certainly bluegill or perch or anything that I could get hold of. I mean, it's really bass would be perfect. I mean, very delicate texture, delicate flavor. It's one of the reasons I carry a bottle of wine with me when I go fishing. White wine, a little steamed fish, a little salt, pepper, and lemon. I mean, I'm happy. Seriously, just delicious stuff. So let's go ahead now, and we will get into the herbs of the week. And we're going to start with another grass. Last week I did 2 grasses. This one is super common. You probably have been pulling this stuff up in your yard. You see it everywhere. It's Juncus tenuis, wiregrass. Not a lot of documented evidence on this one, but Plants of the Cherokee tells us that a tea made from wiregrass was believed to toughen athletes and prevent them from falling down while playing a sport that they enjoyed. It was just called the ball game, and it's sort of like field hockey or lacrosse, but kind of almost like suicidal. I mean, it's like combine that with rugby. I mean, it was a really tough game. It's not baseball, and a lot of very serious injuries occurred. But it probably began as training warriors for battle and became a sport. And I don't know if it's much played anymore. I mean, it's really tough, really tough. But they also used they would wash babies in a tea of wiregrass to ensure them having strength growing up. A tea made of wiregrass and common plantain was given to the infant when first starting to crawl or to walk to prevent lameness. I don't know how it works. Don't know if it works, but I know plantain obviously couldn't be bad for them. It's going to give them some good vitamins. So it could be a mineral content. I don't know. Silica. Grasses have silica. Silica grows helps with strong, healthy bones, teeth, and skin. So yeah, there's probably a lot of good reason for that. Botany a Day says a tea made from the plant may have emetic quality, so could make you throw up, I guess, if you had too much. So our second weed from my book, Medicinal Herbs and Weeds. Oh, and don't forget the burdock recipe came from the Spring Foraging Cookbook. Those are the 2 books I'm kind of working through on the show right now. Spring Foraging Cookbook and Medicinal Weeds and Grasses. All available from me as a PDF or Amazon in print, wherever you like to buy your books. They should be able to get it. Cumaria striata is common Lespedeza, or Japanese clover, or just called Lespedeza. This is also one of those weeds from Japan. Like I said, I don't know how we got all these weeds from Japan, But all I can say is the Japanese were very generous sharing their plants with us. We haven't been probably as grateful as we should be with things like burdock and such. It says plants for future states, medicinal use of common Lespedeza. The whole plant is used medicinally as a diuretic for reducing fever and treating diarrhea. A decoction of the plant is used in the treatment of extreme physical debility and swellings. It is boiled with Centella asiatica and Prunella vulgaris, so Centella and Prunella, pretty common herbs, for the treatment of dysentery, headache, vertigo. Broth is used to improve the appetite. So I'm seeing a lot of the diuretic properties there. Like if you're having a lot of fluid retention, it can make you dizzy. It can give you a headache. It can give you vertigo. It can it increases the blood pressure. So that we're looking at that one really as a diuretic and for helping with fevers and diarrhea, which is very very useful. For a very common weed. And then a longer entry here is going to be wild lettuce. And we're going to cover this one a little bit later in the foraging book as well, because wild lettuce is the ancestor to our common salad lettuce. Now, the difference is common salad lettuce has been bred to grow in heads or like loose leaf, like romaine or something, still more of a heading form than wild lettuce, which can grow 6-7 feet tall, and it doesn't look anything like lettuce. There comes basically in two varieties. There's regular wild lettuce, and there's prickly wild lettuce. And this is what's interesting here, and this is what we're going to focus on. We're focused on the medicinal properties of it today. For about 50% of people, the white milky sap of wild lettuce may be used as a mild sedative and painkiller. It's been called a feeble opiate. Although it doesn't seem to contain any opium, it has an opiate-like effect, as do several plants like Jamaican dogwood and a few others that come to mind, as opposed to, say, kratom or kratom, which also has an opiate-like effect, but it actually is somewhat like an opiate. It can actually cause addiction and withdrawal, and it would be extremely difficult to take enough of it to overdose, and die. I mean, because it's just a ground up leaf. It's a bulk product. And people usually make a tea out of it or combine it in a smoothie or something. I consider it, even though it's a controversial plant, I consider kratom to be a fairly safe herb, honestly, if it's not overused. And I'm glad that it is legal and over the counter. It's fantastic for spasmodic pain. Nerve pain, spasmodic muscle pain. It's just that sharp, searing pain takes away in a blink of an eye. Now, of course, it could be abused. Like I said, it can cause addiction. It can cause withdrawal symptoms. Some people have said that prolonged overuse of it can cause psychosis. So, that's one of those things that if you're an adult, you can probably figure out how to use it responsibly. And if you can't use it responsibly, you probably ought not to be using it. I think it's probably safer than a lot of prescriptions on the market, but I'm not going to recommend that one. Wild lettuce for about 50% of people is just about as effective. For the other 50%, myself included, it does absolutely nothing. And well, it is a bitter. It's good for the liver, but as far as for pain or muscle relaxation, no. And to harvest it is really difficult. You go out on a hot summer day, and you find a bunch of it growing. It's usually going to be beside the railroad tracks or in an old field, what we call a waste area. It's a place we normally don't want to do a lot of harvesting because there could be some contamination. Doesn't seem to be as much of an issue with wild lettuce because what you do is you cut the top, let the milky sap start to come up, let it dry a little bit in the sun, collect it, cut another inch or two down, do the same thing. It'll take you all day, and you might get about an ounce. So it's labor intensive. It's difficult. Some people take the leaves and such, and even the buds, and tincture the plant as you would any herb without doing that milky extraction. They say it works just fine. As I said, it does nothing for me, so I can't say that. But even going back And some people smoke it, actually. They say they get a better effect from it that way. Again, no, it does nothing for me. But even going back to Dioscorides in ancient Greece, he said the taste is somewhat, no, he said it had a bitter sap, and that the milky juice had a similar quality to poppy in properties. So even the ancient Greeks recognized this. He recommended 20 grams of the juice taken in a hot drink to purge away watery matter through the bowels. So he found it good as a medicinal herb and for relaxation and pain, the same way they would use a poppy, right? Opium. So he said also that it was good for eye diseases, which you don't want to get that sap in your eye. I'm not exactly sure how he used that. But it was diluted in milk and rubbed on. That's how he used it. And actually, it was supposed to be woman's milk, mother's milk. So I don't know why. That was somewhat common in ancient Greek medicine. We'll just put it that way. I don't know that there's any special value there whatsoever in this regard. I mean, obviously for a baby, it's the very best thing. So the seed of the lettuce, cultivated a drink, turns away lustful dreams and venereal diseases. So it had sort of an anti-aphrodisiac effect. He said it was good for drawing down the menstrual flow and given as a drink for those touched by a scorpion or harvest spider. The juice also good for the same purposes, yet weaker than the seed as far as the anti. I think he's still talking about the anti-aphrodisiac effect. And apparently, it was very popular among the Magi and the Zoroastrians, and the Romans were beginning to cultivate it as a vegetable by this time. Pliny wrote extensively on that, as did Cato. Really good authors if you're interested in ancient food and farming practices, by the way. Gerard explains, there be, according to the opinion of the ancients of lettuce, two sorts, one the wild or one of the field, the other tame or of the garden, but time, with industry of later writers, has found out that both wild and tame are the same plant, essentially. He says, the lettuce cooleth the heat of the stomach, called the heartburn. And yes, lettuce is good for digestion. That's one of the reasons we eat it in salads. Wild lettuce is going to be much stronger in that regard. And it helpeth when it is rubbed with choler. It quenches the thirst, causeth sleep. That's the opiate-like property again. Maketh plenty of milk in nurses, who through heat and dryness grow barren and dry of milk. For it breedeth milk by tempering the dryness and heat. But in bodies that be naturally cold, it doth not engender milk at all, but is rather a hindrance thereunto. I had no idea. I'm not a midwife, Lettuce maketh a pleasant salad, being eaten raw with vinegar and oil and some salt. But if it be boiled, it is sooner digested, and it nourisheth more. It's true. Cooked foods generally are more healthy. We can assimilate the vitamins and minerals from them much better than we can. People go to these raw food diets. They lose weight because they're not getting a whole lot of nutrition out of their food. They're getting a whole lot of fiber. Especially true with mushrooms. Mushrooms are like worthless if eaten raw. They're tasty, but they're not good for nutrition at all. You may be interested. We don't cook a lot of lettuce these days. Maybe if you get Chinese fried rice, there might be some lettuce chopped up in it. The English boiled all vegetables, and boiled lettuce was very popular, actually. And in France, they still enjoy lettuce soups. Lettuce usually cooked down in some chicken stock with a little milk blended in and butter. It's quite good. It's very, very good. And when the lettuce is really coming in and the weather's starting to get hot, and you got to use it all up before it bolts, great way to use lettuce because you can blanch it and freeze it. And of course, it's going to be worthless for salad, but it's going to be great for soups from there on. And you can use it in stuffings and with roasted meats, and it's actually a very nice vegetable when cooked. And I don't think in America we ever really experience it that way, except maybe if there's some on your hamburger and you pop it in the microwave, and then it's like, that's not so good. But there's some really good ways of cooking lettuce. And he said that It is served in these days and in countries at the beginning of the supper and eaten before any meat. And that was because it was so good for digestion. And yes, it is. It's really how it came into our diet so much. He said it could be, and taken before meat, he said would stir up the appetite. So he considered it sort of like, what's the word for that? An appetizer? Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess. And then he talks about the juice of the lettuce, which is that white milky sap, is moist and cold, yet not ill, not bad for you. Not much in quantity. It takes a lot of lettuce to get a good amount of the sap. Galen affirmeth that it doth neither bind the belly nor looseth, for it has no harshest nor styptic quality by which the belly is stayed. Anyway, he goes on and just talks about that lettuce used as a poultice was good for inflammations, burnings, and scaldings. Both lettuce and cabbage have been traditionally used that way, placed on burns and wounds, and they do a lot of good. The juice of lettuce cooleth and quencheth the natural seed if it be too much used, but procureth sleep. In other words, anti-aphrodisiac, as are opiates. They definitely will take away desire and will help sleep. So again, about 50% of people. Culpeper considered it a moon plant because it was so cold and cooling, and also because it could help with lactation. He says the juice of lettuce being boiled or mixed with oil of roses applied to the forehead and temples procures sleep. So he actually used it externally and eases the headache proceeding of a hot cause. Being eaten boiled, it helps loosen the belly. It helps digestion, quenches thirst, increases milk in nurses, eases griping pains of the stomach or bowels that come with choler. Applied outwardly in the region of the heart, liver, or reins, as the kidneys, or by bathing the said places with the juice of the distilled water, wherein some white sanders or red roses are put in. So again, he's basically combining lettuce with roses. Also tempers the heat of the urine. Galen advises old men to use it with spice, and where spices are wanting, to add mint, rocket, and other such hot herbs, or else citrus, lemon, and orange seeds, to abate the cold of one and the heat of the other. So he basically thought it was really good for the kidneys, essentially. He says lettuce is chiefly forbidden to those that are short-winded or who have any imperfections of the lungs or spit blood. And this, you'll find this coming up in a lot of the lore of the medicinal use of the plant, that lettuce was thought, I guess, because probably again that opiate effect. It has a slightly narcotic effect. It will lower respiration in some people, that it could be harmful to people with tuberculosis or asthma. And I can totally see that. Miss Grieve, we'll get up to the 1930s now, finish up the English tradition. She talks a lot about it. It was mainly just used as a food at the time. And she makes a statement, all lettuces possess some of the narcotic juice. So even our cultivated field lettuces. I cannot say as I agree with that, having grown lettuce and never seen any seep out of it. So, yeah, I don't think she's actually right about that, but she may be. And she may be talking about, a more unimproved heirloom variety. I don't know. But she said medicinal actions and uses. The drug resembles a feeble opium without its tendency to upset the digestive system. It is used to a small extent as a sedative and narcotic. One thing about opiates is they cause constipation. Anybody who's ever been on pain meds will tell you that. And I had a serious back injury. So around 1920, I had to take a lot of pain meds until my back was miraculously healed. And I don't touch them anymore because coming off that stuff was horrible, just horrible. So if I ever need them again and have to use them, I don't want to have a tolerance build up, and I don't want to have to take them as long term as I did back then, or as in high doses. And anytime I can find an herb that works better, I will stick with the herb. Dr. Collins said that 23 out of 24 cases of dropsy were cured by taking doses of 18 grains to 3 drachms of essentially the sap of the wild lettuce dissolved in wine, and so that's edema. So it's got some good. She says mildly diuretic and diaphoretic, means it helps with pull off excess fluid and with fevers, induces sleep, and allays the cough. So yeah, I could also see why if it suppresses cough, you could build up more congestion in the lungs because you're not expectorating it. Might be another reason it was contraindicated for people with lung issues. Said that moderate doses given to the lower animals acts as a narcotic poison, an injection having even caused death. So, wow, I don't know. Maybe don't use it in veterinary medicine or figure out how to use very small amounts of it. In the Irish tradition, John Kehoe said it promotes a good appetite, quenches thirst, aids digestion, promotes sound sleep, provokes urine, and increases milk in nurses. The green leaf, when bruised, could be applied to burns, scalds, boils, and inflammations. And like I said, it's very useful. Like, I don't know, when I was a kid playing baseball, the coaches used to say, put cabbage leaves under your cap to help keep you cool. It really worked. And I think lettuce leaves probably have a very similar quality in that way. Turning to American herbal medicine, the Thomsonia Materia Medica states that wild lettuce is diuretic, antiscorbutic, which means it has vitamin C. It'll help prevent scurvy. Moderately antispasmodic, diaphoretic, and narcotic. For complaints of the kidney and bladder, dropsy, scorbutic difficulties, and constipation of the bowels. Let's see if there's anything. No, they pretty much covered all this before. The juice sedative, narcotic, generally laxative, powerfully diaphoretic, so they thought it was a powerful diaphoretic, and slightly diaphoretic. And they're talking the wild variety, so it would be more diuretic than the garden variety that Miss Greve seemed to have been talking about. Excellent remedy for dropsy, operating as a powerful hydrogogue if compounded with bitter root in proportion of 4 ounces. And I guess what is bitter root? It's going to be gentian, probably, is what he's talking about. And hydrogogue means it increases the amount of urine you're producing, essentially, as well as saliva and sweating, usually. American Materia Medica, American Eclectic Materia Medica says that it was narcotic, anodyne, sedative, diaphoretic, diuretic, hypnotic, and antispasmodic. Hypnotic just means it helps you sleep. Valuable anodyne and palliative means it would help with pain and discomfort. Resources of Southern Fields and Forest in the 1860s talks about the milky juice, and at the time it was being experimented with for pain and sleep and to help with kidney issues. King's Medical Dispensatory of 1898 tells us that at the time there was an official extract of this medicinal herb, and they said lactarium, that's the lettuces, contain neither morphine nor hyoscyamine. I think it's hard to pronounce. Hyoscyamine, nor any other alkaloid. So it was not an opioid narcotic, is essentially what they're saying. But it's found to consist of bitter substances, lactin, lactopicarin, and lacturic acid, etc., 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 and text tells how to do the extract to get the bitter principles to use as a digestive bitter, essentially, and they actually would combine it with chloroform as a pain killer, so as sedative. So we probably don't really want to do that. Chloroform can be pretty darn dangerous. When Hank Williams Sr. died, he was, he had spina bifida. Essentially, there was a place in his spine that was missing, and you could look in and see the spinal cord. Surgeons did surgery. They fused the vertebra together, allowing him to walk for a little longer because he was losing control of his legs and bladder and etc. And the man was in extreme pain. So when people say Hank Williams was just, an alcoholic and drug addict, no, actually, he was the hillbilly Shakespeare, as they say. He was one of the greatest songwriters of all time, and was in such unfathomable pain most people cannot imagine. But when he died, it was barbiturates and chloroform that seemed to have caused the overdose, along with probably about a half bottle of whiskey. So we don't want to do that. But they just said a syrup of lactarium is valuable as a cough syrup, and they give some interesting other uses that we probably don't want to do anymore. Now the Lumbee Indians use the plant. Herbal remedies of the Lumbee says the plant is common in eastern U.S. Absolutely. Milky sap from a recently broken stem was used by the Lumbee to treat sores, pimples, poison ivy, and itching. It's a unique use. Plants for Future says the whole plant is rich in a milky sap. And they tell how to harvest it. Lactarium has the effects of a feeble opium, but without its tendency to cause digestive upsets, nor is it addictive. So I think that's important to point out, because it does not have an opioid alkaline. Is that the right word? Anyway, it's not an opiate. It's taken internally in the treatment of insomnia, anxiety, neurosis, hyperactivity in children. Probably a very good use for it, actually, if it helps. Dry coughs, whooping cough, rheumatic pains. Concentrations of lactarium are low in young plants. That's right, you want to look for an older plant. It is collected several times a day until the plant is exhausted. Exactly. The plant contains is that the same word? Hyoscyamine. Yes, which King's Medical Dispensary said it didn't have. Well, apparently it does. A powerful depressant of the parasympathetic nervous system. An infusion of the dried and flowering plants can also be used. Like I said, some people prefer to use it that way. The plant should be used with caution and never without the supervision of a skilled practitioner. Even normal doses can cause drowsiness, excess restlessness, while excess amounts cause restlessness, and overdose can even cause death through cardiac paralysis. This is the strongest warning I've seen yet on that. I think you'd have to take a lot, but still we want to give that warning. And maybe don't use it in kids for hyperactivity. I don't know. You're going to have to do your research on that. Some physicians believe that any effects of this medicine are caused by the mind of the patient rather than the medicine. They think it's all psychosomatic. I think that's really just because it only has an effect on about 50%. Like I said, if I had learned all about wild lettuce and went and tried it and it had no effect, I think people just made it up. But I've talked with enough people that are skilled, trained herbalists that agree with me that in about 50% of people, it actually does have an effect. It is used in the treatment of chronic catarrh, that's congestion, cough, swollen liver, flatulence, and ailments of the urinary tract. It's a bitter, it would be good for the liver. Cases of poison caused from this plant have only been recorded very rarely. So I think that kind of lends credence to my idea that you'd have to take a whole lot. I mean, because lettuce is not generally considered a dangerous plant. I mean, lettuce is pretty safe as far as an edible goes. And that really is the only warning I've ever run across. But anything that depresses respiration and heart rate should always be used with caution. Even if you have a constitution like a horse like I do. Be careful. All right, y'all. I think that one's going to we'll wrap it up there. We'll talk again next week. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week. Go out and harvest some good wild plants. Go fishing if you get a chance. Enjoy this beautiful time of year. Thank God most of the pollen has passed now in North Carolina, so I can actually get out and enjoy it quite a bit more. It's just been crazy heavy this year, just crazy thick. And people, they said in Raleigh it was record high levels of pollen. Friends in South Carolina are telling me it's been like the worst year for allergies they've ever experienced. It's been really, really heavy. So I'm glad that's passed, and now we can just enjoy this beautiful spring weather. So y'all have a good one, and I will talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.